welcome to another edition of Cooking with Kacy. Today we are going to go backwards in our calendar just a little bit. So last week, if you followed along, we made August's recipe, which was a shrimp burrito bowl, which was super yummy. So this week we're going to make a summer garden pie. If you've already have one of these at home, this is going to be July's recipe. Oh, that was last week. So we're going to make July's recipe to take advantage of all those yummy garden vegetables, zucchini, corn, onion. So those are things that grow pretty readily in Kentucky during the summer months. And so this just kind of is an easy way to use up some of those vegetables. And if you have some farmers market vouchers, this would be a great opportunity to use them and purchase some of these vegetables. So this is what our finished product is going to look like here. Super easy recipe, doesn't take a whole lot of ingredients. So the very first thing we're going to start is by cutting our zucchini. Now, the recipe calls for 2 medium zucchini. I actually purchased these from a local farmer, and there were not any medium ones, there were small ones. So I just purchased 3 of them instead of 2. So that's very easy. So what I'm going to do, now I've already washed these, right? Anytime we purchase fresh produce, we want to make sure we give it a rinse. Remove any blemishes. We're going to cut off the tops and the bottoms and throw those away. And then we were just going to thinly slice the zucchini. Okay, so this zucchini will go in a skillet with our other vegetables and cook for a few minutes. Now, I'm just going to do a good slice on that. We kind of want it thinner. We don't want real big, thick pieces of the zucchini. Zucchini is great, and just about everybody has some zucchini right now. So you may have a friend or a relative that has some extra zucchini. Usually this time of year, people are looking for ways to get rid of their zucchini. So this is a great way to use it, and a little something different. There's lots of things you can do with it, and I think this is kind of a neat way to use up some of that zucchini. All right. Couple more of these to go. So once we get this slice, this is going to go in our skillet with some butter, some corn, some mushrooms, and some onion. And we're just going to give that a good saute for about 5 minutes, just to kind of to make them translucent. We're not going to quite cook them all the way, because then that's going to go in the oven once we get everything together. And it gets tricky when you get down to those last few pieces. All right, last one here. Just going to slice him up. And then we're ready to assemble our summer garden pie. Have to chop your zucchini quite as quickly as I'm chopping mine. You can take it as slow as you need to. Right? We all have to start somewhere. If you're not used to chopping things, you'll just take it nice and slow. The important part is to keep your fingers out of the way. All right. Now that's done. So we're going to take a tablespoon of butter and we're going to drop it in our skillet. And then we're going to turn our skillet on to about a medium heat. And we're going to let this butter melt. Get that going in there. It's on. I feel like it was getting ready. A little technical problem. My skillet didn't feel like it was quite warm enough. Is going now. All right, so while that is melting, I'm going to go on and spray my pan. Now our recipe calls for an 11 by 7 inch baking dish. I could not find an 11 by 7, so I think I have like a 9-inch square here. That's going to work just fine. If you have a round kind of pie dish, that would work just as well too. I think the smaller the pan, you may have to cook it a little bit longer because it's going to be denser. So it's going to be thicker in the pan, so you might just have to cook it a little bit longer. Or you could probably even use a 13 by 9 that's just going to spread it out kind of thin. So we're just going to use this square dish. So we're going to give that a good spray. All right. Butter is melting, so we're going to go in and drop in our onion. So I have a half of an onion that has been diced, so that's going to go in. Okay. Then we have a can of corn that has been drained. Now if you wanted to use fresh corn, you could totally do that. You would need about 1.5 cups of fresh kernels if you were to go ahead and cut that off of the cob. Put that in there. Okay. And then we have 8 ounces of sliced mushrooms. Some of these mushroom slices are already kind of thick, so you can just break those apart with your hands. They cut apart pretty easy. Now, I purchased pre-sliced mushrooms. You could totally purchase bigger bulb mushrooms and just slice them yourself if you wanted to make sure that they were really thin. So these are already done for us. So those are going to go in. And then lastly, we're going to slide in this zucchini. Okay, so we've got all of our fresh vegetables in there. So I'm just going to give this a nice toss, make sure they're all mixed up. We're going to let those cook. Okay. Get this out of the way. And then we're going to work on our second part of our recipe. Now the second part, you're going to need eggs. So you're going to need 4 eggs that have been beaten. So I've already done that in our bowl here. So I've got 4 eggs. You're going to need some dried oregano, basil, and salt. If you happen to have fresh basil, you could use that in this recipe as well. So the recipe calls for a tablespoon of dried. So if you were using fresh, you would want to use 2 tablespoons of fresh basil. So whichever you have is worth. So we've got our basil, oregano, and then salt. Just going to give that a little stir. And then we are going to add in 6 ounces of mozzarella cheese. So just some shredded mozzarella. That is going to go in there. Give that a good mix, and then we're going to set that aside. And we're going to come back to our fresh vegetables in our skillet. Alright, so these need to saute, like I said, for about 5 minutes, just till they're nice and tender. So once they cook, we're going to do something a little different with them. Because these are vegetables that have a higher water density, and we don't want our finished product to be watery, we're actually going to drain them once they get cooked. So super simple setup. If you ever have to do anything like this where you have to drain something, it's just take a bowl, just a plain old bowl, and just take a colander and just set the colander in the bowl, and that way the extra juice goes into the bottom, and then you have your vegetables just left in the colander. And you kind of want to make sure that there's room in between the two, because if the vegetables are sitting down in the juice, then that's not going to help anything. You want to leave a little bit of separation there. This is a great little simple trick to be able to make that separation happen. So just going to give these a little stir here. We're having a breaker issue. I think my skillet keeps knocking the breaker. once these are cooked, we're going to go on and transfer them into our bowl so that they can drain. Now you could pick this skillet up and dump them, but I'm clumsy, and if I do that, I'll have veggies everywhere. So I'm just going to scoop them into my bowl. This is so pretty, lots of colorful ingredients here, so that we know that there's going to be lots of nutrients in this recipe. So it's definitely a good for you meal. Very filling, lots of fiber in this recipe because of all the fresh vegetables that are in here. Okay, so you let the juice drain out of there. There's our timer. And then we are going to layer this in here. We're going to put our fresh vegetables in the pan. Then we're going to take this egg mixture and put it right over top of it. All that goodness scraped into the bowl. And then we're just going to spread this out. And get it nice and evenly covered as much as you can. All right. So, now this is going to go into a 375-degree oven for 20 minutes, covered with foil. Okay. So cover that, into our oven it goes for 20 minutes. Now once the 20 minutes is over, we're going to take this out and take the foil off of it and cover it, put it back in the oven for another 5 to 15 minutes, depending on how brown you want your finished product to be. I want mine a little brown. I like that crispy crust on it. And so I think mine ended up cooking an extra 15 minutes after the foil came off. And the magic of television, here is our finished product. So this is our finished summer garden pie. So this is kind of what it should look like once it is finished. It's got that nice golden brown top to it. Smells amazing. So if you have any questions, want to see more recipes, visit either my Facebook page, the Bourbon County Nutrition Education, for lots of other recipes, and then watch for videos on the Bourbon County Senior Center's Facebook page. So I will see you guys again next Tuesday with another video. Thanks for joining in.